Live.
What are we doing without Rachel? Welcome, everyone, to Office Hours with Arrow, a LinkedIn Live event hosted by Arrow leaders who care about what senior living looks like. Our host today, our host normally, Rachel, is gone. She's on vacation. So we are trying to figure this out without her, and we're doing great, everybody. I feel like we are going to win. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Amanda Tweten. I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at Arrow Senior Living, and I'm so excited to have these two guests with me today as we talk about a topic that is near and dear to my heart. Candace, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Candace Johnson. I am the Vice President of HR and Associate General Counsel for Arrow. All things HR, some things legal, particularly when they intersect. That's me.
And then Shannon.
Hi guys, I'm the Senior Managing Director of Marketing. I'm all over the place. I talk about culture, I help with your marketing materials. I'll help with it. That's what I do. If you need it, I'll help with it. It's my whole motto.
Yes. So we're excited to talk to you today. As we were thinking about topics for this week's discussion, what came up was, have we had a good moment where we've talked about our diversity, equity, and inclusion commitments? And I thought that this would be an interesting topic, mainly because I think, I don't know that the senior living industry is always associated with being the most diverse and inclusive industry. And of course, that is something that I would definitely like to change. And I think that, one of the things that's important to us is that we don't just like talk the talk, but we actually walk the walk. And it's not always easy to do. And so I thought it would be a good discussion point for us to kind of talk a little bit about kind of the things that we do, how we try to incorporate DEI into just the fabric of what our organization looks like. And yeah, that's I think where we jump in and start. Anybody have anything that they want to comment on before we begin?
I do. So I want to comment on really exactly what you said. I do think that it's important that diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging is embedded in our everyday work, what all of our departments as a part of who we are, as opposed to like a side initiative, which side initiatives are great first steps, right? But at some point, the goal is to integrate it into the actual value system of the company. Otherwise, like as we're kind of seeing now, when we have these DEI initiatives, those are usually the first things on the chopping block when we're looking at ways to, cut costs, ways to reform companies. So if they're just a part of what you do, you're never going to cut your hiring process, right? You're never going to cut your leadership promotion opportunities, right? So if diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging is tied into that, it's a part of that fiber, then it's going to be with you forever.
Which I think, where we, as a given, I think everybody in business and then just even in the industry as a given, as a check mark on the checking the box on the list is, of course, the education piece and just making sure that you're providing quality education for diversity, equity, and inclusion, the topics, what that means. And so for us, that's just like a given. Of course, that's going to be part of what we do with our onboarding and training. We wanted to take it a step further to so transitioning from, to me, talking the talk is doing the classes, like doing the generic education that you have to do for your Relias or your orientation. But to start walking the walk, how do you figure out ways to infuse inclusion into just the fabric of who you are? And, for us and for me, it always kind of centered around events. How can we, and I was telling Candace as we were talking about this earlier with our prep, it wasn't always easy for us as a company to talk about DEI. And I remember back in I think it was 2016, 2017, it had come up that I was seeing things about Black History Month. And I was like, oh man, I want us to celebrate Black History Month. I have no idea how we're going to do it, but I think I'd like to try. And I remember bringing it to our CEO and the C-suite at the time, and everybody felt a little bit uncomfortable addressing it and not really sure that it would be well received. And so they kind of poo-pooed it, and they were like, no, I don't think that that's our space or where we exist. And I think, and I was pretty frustrated by that answer. And I think a while later, there was an opportunity that came up with an LGBTQ promoter, or like somebody who was in the community who was doing a lot with volunteerism. And I approached the C-suite again, and I'm like, I'd really like us to figure out if there's a volunteer program that we could do that like works in hand with this particular group. And again, they were kind of uncomfortable and didn't really think that it would be well received, and like we shied away from it. And again, I was really frustrated. And to anyone watching this that's like thinking about how they approach their C-suite to talk about how do we bring these initiatives like full circle, the advice that I would give is to just keep trying to have the conversation, because eventually I was able to, I kept bringing it up. And then before you know it, I think 4 or 5 years ago, we started celebrating Black History Month and have evolved how we celebrate it every single year into like a program that we're all very proud of. And I think does a lot of good work when it comes to education, but that didn't happen easily. It happened after multiple times of bringing it up and kind of helping people feel more comfortable with like talking about something that maybe they don't always feel comfortable talking about.
I think that's kind of like what you just said is like the key part, because it's hard and it's divisive, and not everyone is going to be excited about it. And so like when you're the person pushing it, and you're pushing a rock up a hill, and you keep pushing the rock, and there's no top to the hill for the longest time, it's exhausting. And so I think that's one of the reasons it makes it so easy when you're deciding what to cut, to be like, I don't want to push rocks anymore. Like I don't want to do this. And it like, we are 4 or 5 years into really pushing and like doing this work, and it's still hard. Like not everybody is excited about this every day. And so that's what makes that's how it gets pushed out, is it's really hard. And the only way to get through it is to keep trying and keep finding a new angle and worming your way in. So Candace, I see you coming off mute. And
I was going to say, unless you are a company that never takes the easy route, I completely agree with that. I guess I want to maybe speak a bit for the folks that are hesitant, right? And validate that, because it's a scary endeavor. Anytime you're starting something new, particularly to Shannon's point, something that is kind of going against the grain, I think it's normal to be nervous about it, or normal to say, why wouldn't we just do what we know works, which is what we're doing, right? So I think, one, that's normal. And two, we're going to make mistakes. Even now, we're 5 years in, and we still don't have it all figured out. We're going to make mistakes. We're open to making mistakes. But then also, I think baby steps are okay, right? Like, you don't have to start with a robust diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging program. You don't have to change your whole company's vision statement on day one, right? Like, I think the baby stepping towards it might be a more digestible way. And then I also think it would be important just to view it from a perspective of kindness and humanity, as opposed to initiative, if you will, right? And just making space for everyone, no matter what group they might identify with.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think too, like, as I was thinking through like kind of the layers of how we exist, like we like, of course we have the education, of course we're trying to figure out ways to incorporate it into our culture. I think one of the things that we're working on now is really like, how do we diversify our leadership team so that we can continue to be committed to this effort? And I would say that Arrow is not perfect at that yet. I mean, if you were to look at like what our leadership team looked like 5 years ago, it was a lot of white people and not a lot of diversity and differences there. And I think that we have committed to finding ways to grow and network differently in a way to expand experience. And then I also think it's the culture that exists within our resident population. One of the things that, our industry is known for, because we take care of an older population, there's this understanding that, well, that's just the way that they are. That's just the way that they grew up. So, I mean, that's just who they are. And I think you kind of have to make a commitment that that's not like what we're going to accept. Buck always says, we don't say that in 2024. And I think that that's kind of become our motto, that, just because somebody has always operated a particular way doesn't mean that that's how we want to continue to operate. And so having a commitment that we're not going to accept what was, we're going to continue to create conversations about what could be. And I think we genuinely believe that our resident population has the ability to evolve their thinking. We just need to give them the opportunity to do so. And again, it's not always going to be easy, but it is necessary. I think about our employee base, and this younger, as we bring in younger generations into the employee base. I would say that this younger generation is more accepting, is more inclusive, it's more diverse in a myriad of ways. And how do you create a space where you can hire people that are more diverse, more inclusive, when you are dealing with a resident population that might not be? And so how do you merge those two worlds together? And I think you have to facilitate experiences where people can learn about one another and about, so I could go on and on that. But so again, I think the education, the cultural piece of it, and like being committed to the leadership evolution, and then also the evolution of your resident base, like those are major pillars that we're kind of like leaning on as we continue on our journey.
I agree with all of that, Amanda. I think that speaks to kind of where we are now, as well as where we want to go in the future. So I think that is important work. I think we are always going to be open to learning, and again, always open to the possibility that we might be doing it wrong, but we know that our intentions are there, and our hearts are pure, and that we truly do want to get it right. And I think that sometimes goes a longer way than we think, or than we give credit for. I remember getting, I think it was on a training, diversity training that Ayana was doing for us. I got follow-up from a BOD saying, I am nervous to do some of our traditions because I feel like everything I do is offensive. Like, the more I learn, the more you're like, oh no, it's tokenism, or that's just a stereotype. And I completely understood where this BOD was coming from. And I told her, one, what's your intention, right? Where are you trying to go with this? Because if you are just trying to check a box, a lot of times it might be tokenism, so be careful. But also, like, that's what we're here for, right? Like, we have an entire team that is dedicated and willing to figure this out with you, right? And I think that's important as well.
And I think every one of us, and every one of us that's doing this work, we have all, like, part of it is just evolution, and everything has evolution, and it's just being open to accepting that sometimes I'm going to get it wrong, and I'm going to learn from it, and I'm going to try differently next time. And I think that's the key part, is saying, I did my best. I maybe wasn't perfect, but now I know, and I can do better going forward, and just accepting that it is okay to fall and try to do better, as long as you're trying to do better. And we're all learning every day as we go.
Evolution, that reminds me, if anyone is here and you're like, but Arrow team, how do I make the best business case for diversity? I think that we don't have a choice, right? This is the direction that the world is going in. We're already seeing a change in our employment pools. We're going to start seeing a change in our residents and where people are willing to move. People want to move into places that have people that look like them, people that have similar inclusive value systems in them. So like, it might be okay right now as we stand here today, but ultimately it's going to start making business impacts if companies aren't willing to diversify. So that, I think that's the strongest business case.
Well, I was thinking about Candace. There's a part of this too about, or I think I'm going to stumble over this, I think, but like foundationally, I think if everything is kind of grounded in thoughtfulness to others, and like I pride myself on, I want to be a good host. I want to be somebody that makes others feel welcome within our organization. I was thinking about like, it's even like this, it's the little things. And I was thinking about, Candace, that one special forces conversation that you had with one of our sales people, and they were talking to a family. And I don't remember all the details, but they had basically just decided that they could, like, these individuals wouldn't be able to move in because we wouldn't be able to accommodate a dining preference, right? And it's just even thinking about how you start to incorporate other people's cultures into just what we do on a regular basis through the dining program or through events and things that we do. I don't know. I could have taken us a weird way.
No, and I think the biggest piece there, Amanda, is, and that's not just for like this particular incident with this potential resident, but when you are looking at diversity generally, try to focus on what are the commonalities. Like often we look at like these identifying factors and we say, oh, we're so different because this person is this, or this person and I'm this, or they eat like this and I eat like this, right? But most of the time, I would dare to say all of the time, there is a commonality there, right? So with that particular situation, the potential resident had a host of restrictions on things that they could not eat, right? Which was throwing off our team, right? But I just encourage them to look at it from a perspective of what can they eat? Certainly fresh fruits, yes. Fresh vegetables, yes. Certain types of dairy, yep, we have that, and it's always a lot easier to look at it from a perspective of where can I connect with this person, right? Instead of this is why I can't connect with this person.
Shannon, I think you might love or hate this, but as Candace and I were like talking about this conversation earlier, and I was trying, like, one of the things that I've really wrestled with is, I probably swing, and I don't want us to get too far down the rabbit hole of like politics, but one of the areas where we have found like hiccups or struggles is when we have tried to create these movements in communities that are probably more predominantly conservative religiously. And so then how do you create a space where both somebody who is wanting to be inclusive of, and I'm going to use the LGBT community. So you're wanting to be inclusive of the LGBT community, but you're dealing with somebody who fundamentally at the core of who they are believes that a man loving a man or a woman loving a woman is just sinful and wrong. How do you bring those two spaces together and how can they coexist? And we kind of broke, that's something that I've really struggled with because I want to create a space that's inclusive of everyone, even people who believe differently than I do. And Candace and I started breaking down the difference between me as a Swiftie and her as a member of Beyonce's Beehive. Like, how can we coexist when we so fundamentally like value different things? And I feel like we worked it out.
Because it's just that one thing, right?
Yeah.
Like I am never going to be a hardcore Taylor Swift fan. You could also remove hardcore and just say fan, and that's never going to be me, right? Amanda is like probably the number one, like she's president of the fan club, right? that doesn't mean we can't be best friends. There's so many other things about Amanda that I love, and we're just going to connect on those things, right? So like, I'm probably not going to go to the Taylor Swift concert or the viewing party or make the friendship bracelets. I'm not gonna do any of that, but there's so much other stuff we can do. And then also, certainly, I don't have to be a Taylor Swift fan to at least honor her humanness and her artistry, right? And that's really what it comes down to. Like, we're not saying you have to believe that this is one way or the other. You have to believe that this is the best artist ever, because how could you? But we are saying you have to be open to, one, being respectful, being kind, honoring, Abby says, why not Candace? Honoring other people's humanity, and walking side by side, even when you're not completely parallel.
Well, I think the other question you have to ask, not to steer it away from Beyonce versus Taylor Swift, because I would never want to do that. But if I were to do it, one of the things you have to look at is, does this actually impact me, or am I just bristling because it's not me? Like, am I bristling because it's not the thing I choose? Because so many times, like, I can be friends with people. It actually doesn't matter who they're dating. Weirdly, it has nothing to do with me. And I don't have to, like, I can be like, I don't like the person you're dating for whatever reason, but it doesn't matter. And that's kind of the goal of all of it, is like, we are so used to thinking that our perspective and our view is the most important view, because to us it is, and we can have it be the most important view to us. But in the broader world, like, is it? Do I really have to care about this one thing, or can I accept this person as a person, and it's okay that this is who they are, and this is okay that it's who I am? We can coexist and we can respect each other and love each other, and I don't need to care.
And you can respect and hold space for that person without it being a diss or some type of negative implication to you. I told Amanda, like, I deal with this with my kids all the time, like, because I have 2 kids, and obviously there's the competition, right? So if I tell my son, oh my gosh, you are so adorable, my daughter has this natural inclination to say, well, what about me, mommy? Do you think I'm adorable? And it's like, yes, you are adorable. I respect you. I respect your opinion as well. Right now, I am honoring this person, right? That doesn't mean that your value is also not important.
Well, and I think that the conversation that kind of comes up for me is, though, if you are like a leader within our organization, say you're a leader within our organization and you fundamentally don't believe in some of the things, or you're not interested in learning about some of the things that we put as like a mandate, if you will. So like, if it rolls around, and I'm like, if it rolls around to Pride Month, and we're going to be like, we are celebrating Pride through a Pride happy hour, and say you're a resident services director who feels differently about the LGBTQ experience, how do you, as a leader within our organization, engage there? And I think that's a real place that companies have to think about, because, and what is the delineation between somebody who has their own personal view and then is representing a situation where I'm going to create a space where someone can learn about this group of people that might be different than me. And I mean, we've struggled. I mean, I was telling Candace, there was a plant ops director in one of our communities that quit because I was too woke and in my agenda. And I kept thinking, like, I don't know how to create a space or how to communicate like the difference between, like, it's not so much that you have to believe what we believe or what I believe, but you do have to create a space where you're creating a safe space for people. Does that make any sense?
That does make sense.
Yeah.
I think I think where the middle, or where you strike that balance, is if we really are all open to each other and accepting everyone's differences. One might have the right, like us as a company, we might have the right to say, this is a value that we are going to respect, we are going to endorse, blah, blah. But someone else should also have the room and the space to say, well, this is how I feel about this, and this is how it impacts me personally, right? And if we take away the big feelings about it, and like you have these big buckets that's like the world, the news tells us how to think about it, right? If we take away all of that, my idea, like dream world, is not that individual quits because we're whatever agenda. Instead, mine is that we sit down and we talk with them, and you tell me what makes you uncomfortable, and maybe we draw the line somewhere else. Maybe, yeah, you have to put out the flags because that's your job, but you don't have to do this, or this is a bridge too far. But that doesn't happen unless there's enough respect and the temperatures are down enough to have the conversation.
Which again, I think that weaves into another layer of the DEI commitment, that it like you can't just talk the talk. You have to walk the walk and really sit through those moments and navigate through them. So
yeah.
And remembering to do it from that place of the professionalism, and that learning, like, I may not agree, but I'm willing to learn about this thing I don't know about. I've got to be willing to learn about this thing I don't know about or agree with. And remembering that it is an entire spectrum, the direction you're going, the direction you're coming from. You've still got to be mindful of all of them at the same time so that you can find the common ground. Because I think sometimes as humans, our natural inclination is like an eye roll response to some of those and be like, they're not where we're at. They're not for us. And we have to like put down that natural immediate human response and be like, that's completely against everything I'm pushing for. Like that's the polar opposite.
And I think the other thing too is it's not just are we dealing with someone's sexuality, are we dealing with someone's race, but there are lots of parts of like the DEI experience and the belonging experience that have nothing like that are incorporating somebody's ability, and you think about the different things that we have learned over the years as we've like focused in on like visually impaired, hearing impaired. Candace, I can tell you want to say something. So
I do, because we're going to run out of time. And you just made me think of this. I think the one thing that we will never be able to quantify or put on a pamphlet or put on our website is the belonging piece. And like, I think we have a lot of work to do. I get it. I will say I am very proud of Arrow's embracing of the belonging piece. And it's very personal for me because I have worked in spaces where there was diversity, there was equity, certainly there was inclusion. I worked there, but I did not belong. I felt like a fish out of water. And the only way that I was invited to the table is if I morphed myself and performed to what the standard or what the right employee was in those places. Arrow is not a place like that. And it's evidenced by, Amanda, I've heard you say so many times, like, what are your outside of Arrow passions? How do we bring that into your everyday work so people get to show up exactly who they are? That to me is always going to surpass any type of empty programming, right? Like you could do whatever program you want, but if people ultimately feel exhausted when they get home because they've had to perform in order to be accepted, you're never going to get it. So.
Shannon, anything you want to add to that?
I mean, we only have 2 minutes, so I think we're getting to closing arguments in this. We're not arguing, but
I do have a thought. I'm going to put this out into the world just because I want to make sure that I've said it now publicly, so we have to do it. But do you remember when I was telling you about that amazing lady that did the Juneteenth vegan experience at the Parkway?
yes,
And then
follow her on Facebook.
I think we need to make a commitment to including vegans in our world, and we've got to make sure that this gets on Kat's radar, that we start doing something in that market so that we can like celebrate that.
I agree.
I just don't want to forget that we want to do that.
Yes. And now it's out in the world and everybody knows. I'm going to put up one comment from Bill and then I have a closing thought to go after it. But Bill asked early on, has been waiting patiently. What's on the horizon for Arrow and diversity and belonging? I know it's being vegan friendly.
Vegan friendly. We're going vegan.
It's being vegan friendly, but it is also looking at expanding diversity in our leadership, diversity in our resident base, and being intentional about doing so. As you all know, Arrow's always going to look at the data. Like at some point, I would like it to be like tracked, right? Like, are we improving our diversity numbers? And I think that is long-term goal.
Well, and then the other part that I would add to that, I know we're coming to the end, but I do think that, we have to have programs and development opportunities for individuals who might not have ever had the opportunity to like what does leadership look like? What does management look like? How do you evolve those skills? If we're just waiting for somebody to like show up having those skills, we're less likely going to find that. And so we really need to create a space where we're giving opportunity to individuals to really be able to learn and develop the skills so that they can grow. And I think that you have to be purposeful in that too. So focusing in on our leadership and our leadership development programming is going to be where we go next, I think.
Yes.
Closing thoughts, Shannon?
Closing thoughts is for anyone out there that's like, oh my gosh, how do I start? One of the places where we started is we just decided and then we loudly announced it. So Amanda did not do an outfit of the day moment, but one of the first things we did is we just bought these. We loved these shirts. It was a small Black owned business and we bought them for everyone. And that was like
you bought it for me as a gift. And then I loved it so much. I'm like, we need to give all of our leaders this gift. So we contacted them and asked them if this could become part of our uniform. And they said yes.
And they started to put our logo on their sleeve and send it out. But yeah, sometimes the best way to start is just to tell everyone, because then you can't go back because everybody knows. And then
the fact that we're going to start celebrating this vegan experience.
Yeah, it was a perfect tie-in.
Well, I don't know. I think we did it for our first conversation about this. Everybody feeling good?
I think we
I feel good. I feel good. I want to put one closing comment on that just made my heart happy. So this is from Ash, is just driving home that sometimes it just really brings people to us to know if you're worried about people leaving because of what you're doing, no, it's also bringing people to you. And they might be really amazing, like Ash.
She is really amazing.
I know.
So, okay. I hope you all have a good rest of your Thursday, okay?
Yeah.
All right. Bye, guys.
Guys.